Hello, this is a webinar on how to get a durable chemical bond to zirconia. My name is Dan Clementino and I'm a technical manager at Kuraray America Incorporated. We are the importers and we do the sales and distribution and marketing for North America, for Canada and the United States, and all Kuraray and Noritake products. Just so you know who you're speaking to, I have been a technical manager for products since 2012, but have been involved in representing dental adhesives for 26 years. 25 of those years has been with Kuraray and their materials and their unique technologies. I was trained by some of the chemists and clinicians that developed the first total etch bonding system and the first successful Denton bond, as well as the first successful self-etch adhesive and the first self-adhesive resin cements. And the last 6 or 7 years, I've been trained by a few clinicians, mostly Dr. David Alleman, on advanced adhesion, minimally invasive dentistry, which has been termed by some of these people biomimetic dentistry. And this is the kind of the core of what we teach in our educational courses with our key opinion leaders throughout North America. In one of the cases I'm going to show you on bonding an onlay, a ceramic or a zirconia onlay, is going to have immediate dent and sealing and advanced adhesion done on it prior to us bonding the onlay on. Okay, so that's a little bit about me and my background, and let's talk about zirconia. Dental zirconia is really zirconium dioxide, and it comes in a white powder, and it has a crystalline structure, as you can see in this image over here. And the material, the zirconia, is actually in the metal group in the periodic table. So zirconia is definitely a ceramic, but it's what we would call a metal oxide ceramic. Okay, so you do have a metal component to it because the zirconia is in the metal group in the periodic table. So when you start applying heat and sintering the zirconia, okay, you have three phases of the zirconia: monoclinic, tetragonal, and then cubic. Okay, now this can be an issue when you go through this sintering unless you don't have some calcium oxide, yttria oxide, or even manganese or magnesium oxide. These oxides here stabilize the material as it's going through its sintering. So you are able to get to a more cubic, aesthetic, translucent zirconia if the company is able to stabilize it with yttria or one of these oxides. Okay? Let's talk a little bit about Kuraray Noritake Dental Incorporated. This company was created in 2012. Kuraray has been in the dental business since '78 with the first total etch and first dentin bonding agent that actually chemically bonded to dentin. And the Noritake group has been in business, well over 100 years in ceramics. In dental, they started in the late 80s, but they have been dealing with zirconia for industrial applications since 1983. So over here is a picture of their Nagoya manufacturing plant, at least part of it. And this is the same city that Toyota is located in. And they have our lab products and our inorganic ceramics, which is Katana, is a zirconia line. And there is a special high lucite content CZR, Ceravian for zirconia, and this is a very successful ceramic that will fuse to zirconia and actually perform like a PFM, and we'll show you some of that information later on. On the organic side, you have the chairside products, which I've been dealing with since 1992. Clearfill and Panavia are our most popular brand names that you would recognize. And this is our headquarters, our office headquarters in Japan, Tokyo. Okay, so now it's called Kuraray Noritake Dental. We're providing your chairside and your lab products both now. So why can you chemically bond to dental zirconia? Well, the reason you can is a unique ingredient called MDP. This is a adhesive monomer that is a very unique product. I tell people, and when I do lectures, is if you were to wave a magic wand and trying to develop an ingredient for dentistry, you would be very close to MDP. This ingredient is quite exceptional, and many companies are trying to use a form of this ingredient now. and because of how it performs. And let me show you what I mean. So MDP is an adhesive monomer that chemically bonds to metals that oxidize your metal oxide ceramic zirconia, dentin, and enamel. Okay? With a dentin and enamel, it creates an insoluble chemical bond. And the durability of the way this ingredient is manufactured and purified, it doesn't break down very much in the mouth at all. So it has extreme durability when you're bonding to dentin and even zirconia and metals. Okay? It's an acidic phosphate monomer, so it's also used to activate our silane. Okay? So if you take silane, you usually activate it with an acid, then you try and preserve it, put it in a single bottle. It's highly reactive, and in the 90s, some people had problems with this because some companies had materials that weren't stable. Well, I'll show you here in a moment with the MDP and silane combination, you have considerable stability because there's no water in this mixture. Okay, so we are able to create a dual restoration primer that chemically bonds to glass ceramics, your lithium disilicate, also base metals, and your oxide ceramics like zirconia. What you have is when you air abrade the zirconia surface and the inside of your restorations, you're going to expose some of the zirconia atoms, and then you have the phosphate atoms here that are negative charged. They have a positive and negative charge, and they have a high attraction towards one another, and you get an ionic bond. So this is your ionic bond mechanism, and the reason you can chemically bond to zirconia as long as it's properly air abraded. The features of the MDP, if we just take a look at it, it's very interesting to know because dentists aren't able to see. They're one of the few surgeons that are not able to actually see what's happening in the field that they're operating. So when you apply these materials, I'd like to give you an idea of what's happening. When you use a clear fill or Panavia MDP based product, you have this monomer here. It's a linear monomer, and this is the hydrophilic group that goes onto the tooth that will do some mildly acidic etching of the dentin, and then you have these 10 carbon chains that separate the polymerization group from the hydrophilic group. This is an important key because when you separate these two groups by that amount, it is the ideal chemical bond. It enables more durability. If you go less or more, you get a weaker bond. So this is kind of the ideal chemistry that's been found throughout the years. So that just its chemical structure alone is an advantage, but also to remind you it does create an insoluble chemical bond to dentin and enamel. And they're even able to see, you today with technology, with transmission electron microscopes, you can see the level of chemical bonding with your bonding agent in dentin, okay, done by a few researchers, advanced researchers in the dental field. And I'll show you one of them later on, okay. Very low solubility in water. So when MDP creates its bond, especially to dentin in a moist environment, you have to be able to deal with water, and MDP does not break down very much in water at all. Okay, so it's a highly insoluble chemical bond. Challenges with MDP. Usually with almost anything, you have these great features, but there's always a challenge you have to overcome. Well, the MDP is a little bit difficult to polymerize, and that is what gives you the strength of your chemical bonding. It has a great affinity to dentin, but then it needs to polymerize to create a strong chemical bond and for it to last. Also, you have to have these catalysts that work with it, okay, that overcome this weaker polymerization, and then the purity level. You have to manufacture the MDP and get rid of some impurities, and Kuraray has a special manufacturing process for this as well. So we have actually a patent on the way MDP is purified and processed that people cannot infringe upon. And we also have a patent on catalysts that work with MDP that give it its high level of polymerization and also compatibility with other materials if you decide to use another self or dual cure product. And we've seen studies on this in the past 3 or 4 years that are very dramatic. So what products with the original MDP adhesion monomer can be used to bond zirconia restorations? Well, you have two options. You have these restoration primers that I mentioned earlier that have MDP and silane, okay? And then we have Panavia resin cements where MDP is actually in the paste. This is Panavia SA Cement Plus. Panavia F2.0 has been around quite some time. These are very successful for bonding to zirconia directly with the resin cement. Now, if you use a resin cement that does not have MDP, which is our Panavia V5, this cement right here is dual pure, color stable, and fluoride releasing, but there's no MDP in there because MDP takes on a little bit of an opacity when you put it in a paste. So we have the MDP here in the tooth primer for chemically bonding the dentin and enamel, and then silane and MDP is in the restoration primer for doing your glass-based ceramics, lithium disilicate, and your zirconia restorations. This product here was replaced by this one, Clearfill Ceramic Primer Plus, on the market now. So what's the difference between these two bottles? You'll see research on Clearfill Ceramic Primer. Does it relate to Clearfill Ceramic Primer Plus? The answer is yes. They have the same chemistry in these bottles, okay? We released the original Clearfill Ceramic Primer in the single bottle in 2007. This is a pre-activated silane and MDP, and it has a proprietary preservative, and there's no water in this except for your water that's from alcohol. So we don't have any water in here which can cause the silane monomer to start degrading. Our internal testing shows at about 2 years at the end of its shelf life, you're only giving up about 10% bond. So you have incredible stability with this, which is very important. The one below it came out in 2014. Some of our competitors are kind of mimicking the chemistry, and they're expanding their indications onto precious metals or semi-precious metals. And so we have done the same. But I must say, look at your clinical situation. In our kits, like Panavia V5 instructions, if you were to read the text instructions, we say that if you need a strong bond onto gold or semi-precious metal, those metals don't really oxidize, so we do have another primer called an alloy primer for when you do need that level of bonding. You just decide what level of bonding you need onto those semi and precious metal surfaces, and then you may want to actually purchase a separate alloy primer bottle. And this is really, in my opinion, this is the best way to do that, depending on the level of adhesion that you need, like on a repair or something like that, that's all bonding. So this tells you the two ingredients that are in this unique primer. You have your silane monomer, which will chemically bond to your glass ceramics and lithium disilicate. And then you have the MDP monomer here that we showed earlier that will do your zirconia, titanium, and other oxidized metals. Okay? So you have quite versatility, a bit of versatility in here, but also it has unique durability because of the way the MDP is made, and there's no water degrading the silane, so you have a high level of durability with this product. Once again, just a reminder here that water will degrade silane monomers, okay? So what products contain MDP adhesive monomer for bonding zirconia that you can do? Well, the Panavia resin cements, as I mentioned earlier, and this is a few that are on the market still here in the United States and Canada. Panavia SA Cement Plus is a self-adhering resin cement, and it has a high concentration of MDP in these syringes, okay? And then Panavia F2.0, it does have a self-etching primer, and then also your resin cement in these tubes, okay? So MDP is actually in the tubes of cement, so they can be applied directly to air braided zirconia. And then the same thing here, Panavia 21. This is from 1994. This is the first self-etching product ever released that was successful on the American or Canadian dental market. In 1994 in March, this was released, okay? So our newest technology is in Panavia V5. Panavia V5 has a new catalyst technology, and this catalyst technology is in this resin cement here and in this tooth primer. When these two come together, they are able to self-cure as strong as if you light cured it, or as strong as if you light cured Clearfill Bond, which is a gold standard bonding system that came out in 1999. This is a milestone in adhesion dentistry. Most resin cements, when you let them self-cure, they are much weaker than their light cure version. This is no longer true with Panavia V5. Okay, and once again, your adhesion to ceramics is right here into your base metals and zirconia in the Ceramic Primer Plus. A little bit about this paste: it has no amines, it's color stable. So even though it's dual cure, it's color stable, but also when you put it in and light cure it, it is the same. There's no transparency change or color change after curing, so no post-cure color change. It's available in 5 shades, and it's fluoride releasing. The fluoride releasing is very important because the fluoride will release when moisture comes in. A little bit of moisture will come into a resin system, and when we release the fluoride, it hardens the dentin underneath the hybrid layer. So we have studies showing in labs where they put acid and the dentin itself will dissolve, but it doesn't dissolve where our fluoride has gone into the hybrid layer. So it protects the tooth considerably. So this is a very important aspect. Dental zirconia, once again, metal oxide zirconia. This is an animation of one of our pucks, katana zirconia, with all the gradations of color in it. There are 3 requirements for bonding zirconia. One is you have to micro etch or air braid the surface, you have to do a cleaning procedure, and you have to apply an MDP based product, whether it's a primer or a resin cement. Okay? Those are your 3 requirements: air abrasion, cleaning, and a primer or a cement with MDP. So let's take a look at the micro etching, the air abrasion. In our instructions, we show 30 to 50 micron alumina oxide powder should be used. Okay, most of the popular one is 50, and it should be used at around 50 to 58 psi. So I usually quote on our technical support line around 40 to 35, which is pretty much in the middle of this range. Okay, and it's also 30 to 40 you can get from your handpiece delivery system. So some air abraders can be applied or connected, right into your handpiece connections. There is some with adapters to do that. But keep in mind, for your assistants when you train them, you can't see a change in the surface of the zirconia. It's not like if you take an old penny and micro etch half of it, you can see that it's matted and clean. And then phosphoric acid even cleans it more, the surface. You can't see that with the zirconia. So you have to make sure they learn how to air braid the full inside and cover all the surface area. Cleaning. We recommend in our instructions ultrasonic cleaning after the micro etching for 2 minutes. Okay? There are other methods of cleaning that are being popularized out there: sodium hydroxide based materials as a cleaning agent, or steam cleaning. I believe you can use these, but once again, that is off our instructions, and if you trust the source that you're getting that, you can do those procedures as well. But just trust the source and the information that you're getting, okay? We just have had so much luck with the ultrasonic cleaning. It's a little bit longer, but it works very well. Then you do have your second option in the chemical bonding, once again, is the ceramic primer. And once again, that would be used with the resin cement that is non-adhesive, okay? That there's no adhesive properties in the cement, like the Panavia V5, okay? And then once again, you can have your Panavia-based, direct MDP-based cements. And these have proven, the research on these go back to the 90s. We do have a research study where they did different coatings on the zirconia in the 90s, and they thermocycled them 50,000 times, and the Panavia F resin cement just turned out to be about the same bonding. So you can get a durable chemical bond to the zirconia with these systems. We do have an article, a very nice article from Compendium, October issue of last year, 2016, from Marcus Blotz. And he is from Germany originally, and he worked on some of the original zirconia bond testing that we saw coming out of Germany, like I just mentioned. And he's now at University of Pennsylvania. And there's a nice article from Compendium. We have the reprints. If you would like to request a reprint of this article that gives the APC concept, APC technique that I'll show you here in a moment, you just request the reprints from Kuraray. You could dial 844-KURARY or info@kuraraydental.com, or my colleagues and I here in our California satellite office, you can do dental.education@Kuraray, and that will come to me and to my colleagues, and we can send it out to you. So this is a wonderful article that really simplifies it. So the APC concept is it: air abrade, prime, then cement. The only difference in this from what I'm teaching you here today in this webinar is that Dr. Blotz will do his try-in and then do his cleaning, then go to the air abrasion. So it's the same concepts as what I'm teaching you. He's just changing the order a little bit. He feels that he always likes to use the primer, okay? So when he does that, he can do it right after air abrasion. He just air dries the air abrasion, okay? So it's a little bit different sequence, but they are still the same steps, okay? The three requirements are still being fulfilled, okay? He sent me these images. I asked him, and he was politely gave us these images. On the left, you can see that's zirconia that's not air abraded. The images on the right are air abraded. So remember I said earlier, you have to teach yourself, or just know yourself if you're going to do air braiding, or an assistant, that they cannot see a difference, okay? You are exposing the zirconia in here for chemical bonding, but you can't see it. You can see it's pretty similar, okay? And this is an SEM. I'm not sure the magnification, okay? But you can see it's hard to tell a difference, okay? Let's do a clinical case, okay? Our clinical case is going to be with Panavia V5. This is the strongest option that you have on zirconia, in my opinion. This unique catalyst chemistry that I discussed earlier will give you such a strong set that you will have your strongest bonding with this cement. Once again, if it self-cures, it's as strong as you'd like cured clear fill SE bond, and so that is a milestone. So we're going to use this as cement. We're going to do a Katana super translucent restoration, and it's going to be an online. And let's go ahead and do this case. So the first step is you want to air braid with a 30 to 50 micron aluminum oxide powder. And once again, 15 to 58 or 1 to 2 bars. Okay? And this is showing just a little bit of micro etching on that surface. Once again, you cannot see a change. We're using the micro etcher 2A in this case by Danville. There's an item number if any of you are interested in needing to get one. And then the micro cab is what you do it in. You have a filter in here. If you do it inside the micro cab and the suction system, you have a suction system that prevents you from getting the air into the environment, and it's just much safer. So you have that by Danville as well. These two items are very key to doing air abrasion. Then you have some nice, inexpensive ultrasonic cleaners. You can get very small ones just for restorations. I believe you can use some ethanol in them, according to Dr. Blotz, and it's not too long of a procedure to clean them. If you do this cleaning procedure, you just won't have, in this air abrasion that we're talking about, you just won't have problems with this bonding. You won't see many. We do a lot of troubleshooting here. I do the advanced technical support for the company, and every time we have an issue with zirconia coming off, it's these three principles have not been followed, and sometimes none of them are followed. So it's quite exceptional. But you can bond zirconia, and you can do it at a very high level. Okay? So now we're applying, after the cleaning, we're applying the Clearfill Ceramic Primer Plus to the inside. You can see it will look a little glossy on the inside. You want to make sure you cover the whole area. This is a high alcohol content material. So cover the whole area as best you can, get it nice and wet, and then you can air dry with a mild airflow. Okay? Now, its bond and activation is instant. There is no waiting. Some of them are 60 seconds waiting time. You eliminate that with this product. It does not affect the bonding at all. The Panavia V5 paste then can be injected in on top of that ceramic primer surface. Okay? Directly with the auto mixing tip. Now, on the tooth surface treatment, this is a little misleading because this is not dentin and enamel. This underneath here is a resin coating. This is bonding agent and flowable, a very strong flowable, and it's also rib-on fibers in there on some of the previous cracks that were trough. There was a distal crack here, and he's trying to save the tooth, and so he's putting rib-on and bonding in, and then so he has a resin coating on the tooth that he's bonding to, and he has a chamfer margin around here to guide the forces in a certain way down the sides of the tooth. So this gentleman is kind of a burly, very strong man with high occlusion disorders, and he wants to guide those forces and hopefully save the tooth. So he's on resin and enamel. So what he would do is he could micro etch this surface and then phosphoric acid all over to etch and clean the enamel and the resin coating. Then he's going to go ahead and he's going to apply his primer onto that. Okay, now just so you know, this isn't a course on immediate dent and sealing and resin coating. His bond of his onlay onto this resin surface and enamel is 164% stronger than if you were to temporize the dentin and then come back and try and bond to it. Okay? There's been a lot of research on this immediate dent and sealing for over 20 years. So this is a very, very proven technique that you have just a dramatic bond increase in your dentin bonds. Okay? So if it was just natural tooth, you would probably just etch the enamel only, rinse and dry, and then go in with the primer, okay? So right here, if this was dentin, we would just probably etch a little bit the enamel around the edges, 10 seconds, suction off, and then rinse and dry, and then apply the self-etching primer to all your dentin and enamel. Enamel likes the stronger acid, and dentin likes the more mild acid, okay? So that's how we do selective etch technique, okay? And then you're going to air dry. It's about a 20-second application time, and then you're going to air dry until you evaporate the water, okay? I can't tell you how long. It depends on how wet you leave the tooth, but you should be around a 10-second time, should be about enough to evaporate the water, okay? Then you're going to seat the restoration, and he's seating it, and his assistant is taking a brush, and all the margins are super gingival, so she's going to wipe up towards the crown axially to keep the resin from going down deeper, and he's going to get any excess interproximally with the brush that he can. You can do a tack cure. If you decide to do a tack cure, Panavia V5 is less light sensitive than many cements on the market, so your tack cure will take longer. This is a nice aspect because if you've ever done a tack cure a little too long and then you have to sit there and grind off that hard cement, I found that with a few of them on the market when we came out with Panavia V5. Panavia V5 I've seen with a 1,000 milliwatt light, okay, with a 1,000 milliwatt light, about 8 to 10 seconds to get a tack cure. So this gives you time for you to get the ideal tack cure with your light and remove it all in one piece. And it should be able to be done, okay? So this prevents over curing of your excess cement. So you can do a final light cure with it, but once again, if you let it self-cure, it's as strong as if you light cured, okay? And it's about a 3-minute initial self-cure. So here is where we go into our adjustments, finishing and polishing. You'll notice that the Katana super translucent onlay is a little bit brighter, a little high in value. Some of the labs are still adjusting to this newer material. It's been out for a couple years. It has very nice aesthetics, but the sintering time and some other things they are getting used to are affecting the color. But you'll see here in the next image that it looks it's a little high in value here, but it is a very nice material. This lab was just getting used to it. It was new to them, but they are now, most labs are just doing very well with it, and you can have it blend right into the other natural tooth, no problem. Now, one thing you can do, we don't have an image here, but let's say we had to make an adjustment. If we had to make an adjustment here, you are not going to get a white spot coming up because the color is going through the whole puck, which I'll show you in a few minutes. So the puck has the color gradations like a tooth in it. So I had one clinician who used this for the first time. He made an adjustment and called me and said it looked better after the adjustment. So you can rely on this because the color is going through the puck, okay? Now, I want to show you a piece of research that's very interesting. It's by one of the top people in the world on adhesive dental research. His name is Bart van Meerbeek, and this is the gentleman in the picture here. This article is from 2014. Okay, it was published in, I think it's called Clinical Oral Investigations magazine. It may be a more European-based one. I'm not as familiar with it. He's from Belgium. He's the head of the Biomat Leuven Biomat Research Center, which is the Catholic University in Leuven, Belgium. And he's given us exceptional research. Okay, he has actually a paper in 2010 that if you are lecturing on adhesion dentistry, it is a must read. It is a meta-analysis of lab studies and 15 years of clinical studies, and it comes to a very interesting conclusion. Okay, so it's something that you may want to take a look at. But now back to the bonding effectiveness to different chemically pretreated dental zirconia. That's what this is. So what they did is they took the Emax Zircad, partially sintered it, cut blocks, and then they finished sintering it. And then they did what's called a sandblast on it with a cojet. This is a 3M material that is silica-coated particles of alumina. And so they're abrading it with the alumina to expose the zirconia, but also some of those particles get embedded in. So you have kind of a silica and you have a zirconia combined surface, okay? So the Clearfill Ceramic Primer, which is once again a dual monomer primer. Monobond Plus is a dual monomer primer. Scotch-Bond Universal does have silane and MDP in it as well, and then there's Z Prime Plus. I'm not sure of the ingredients of this. It may just be MDP. I don't know if there's silane in this ingredient. Then they used a single cement for all of them, Reliax Ultimate. And they stored the specimens for 7 days, and they did what's called a microtensile test, which is the most accurate way to do bond testing. And so these specimens were then mechanically aged. They started apply, I think, occlusal forces to the restorations, and then thermal cycling 10,000 times. So we have this mechanical thermal cycling, okay, type of procedure done, which they feel is more realistic to what's happening in the mouth. Then they pulled them apart and they evaluated what the surfaces look like, and this is what's with the Clearfill Ceramic Primer, and they just did 7 days water storage. The cement failed in the composite cement. Okay, C is for when the cement failed within itself. In other words, the bond underneath was so strong that, 50%, 7% of the time, the composite itself, cement, gave. So the bond to the zirconia was stronger than the cement itself. And this is always a good sign when you're trying to bond something. And then when they put it in 7 days of water and then the mechanical stressing that I just mentioned, 33% failed on the composite, and then on the interface of the zirconia was 67%. So you can still see it's grabbing onto that zirconia very well, and these were very high bonds. He does not give the bonds in the study, but you can tell in reading it that he says profusely this was the most stable and high bond. Now, in the Scotch-Bond Universal, it started failing just in water coming off of the interface of the zirconia. And 98% after the aging came off of the zirconia. Okay, so it wasn't, for some reason, a durable bond to the zirconia. The Z Prime Plus, their quote was, after additional mechanical aging, analysis could not be performed for Z Prime Plus because only one specimen survived the mechanical aging. So you see a pretty high failure rate here, 98% when they just put it in water and 99%, and I means it's on the interface, which is the zirconia. So it's coming off the zirconia rather easily. So their conclusion, after aging, the Clearfill Ceramic Primer revealed the most stable bond durability. The bond effectiveness was not affected by the mechanical aging when Clearfill Ceramic Primer was used. When Scotch-Bond Universal and the Z Prime Plus were used, the bond strength dropped upon aging. And once again, I just put in the image here of the failure modes. Failure modes are so important. Everybody looks at bond strength. Failure mode is more important even than bond strength. You have to have a good bond, but then look at where they failed. If you have two products that the bond is the same, let's talk about dentin bonding, okay? And one of them is coming off of dentin, where the other is maybe the composite is coming off top of a flowable on top of yours. Don't you want the one that's protecting the dentin? So that's a similar situation here. Whatever's protecting that interface is better, okay? your adhesion. Now I would just like to take a few moments to show you our multi-layer zirconia technology, which I believe is the first patented multi-layer zirconia on the market. It came from Kuraray. It was December 2012 that I learned about it, and then 2015 we have our super and ultra translucent. And once again, you have the gradation in the puck for the technicians. I have had technicians call me with needing some chairside technical support on some discolored cases, and they've told me this new katana, they said, one gentleman said here in Southern California, it's just ridiculous. It's so aesthetic when it comes out of the sintering oven. It's just ridiculous. You can just polish it and almost go. Not in all cases, but in many. So it's really quite a nice new technology. So let me go over the flexural strengths, because that is the big deal with the zirconia and the Emax, with all of our translucent aesthetic ones. So the new ones we have are these two, ultra and super translucent. The ultra translucent is 550 megapascals flexural strength. The super translucent is 748. Katana HT high translucent is 1125, and the Katana ML multi-layered is 1125. So you have the multi-layer, super translucent, and multi-layer ultra translucent. You can use the HT and the ML as a substructure and then layer CZR on top of it to get a very lifelike, strong restoration as well, if you feel that's needed, okay? Or you can use these by themselves. This is indicated for your posterior single unit and 3 unit, and the UT is indicated for posterior single unit and anterior 3 unit bridges. And so it has a lot of coverage, clinical options for you. I'm going to skip through a few things. This just shows the benefit of multi-layer zirconia, that less staining, and there's virtually no need for wax up or investing. Okay, so it's much easier for the technicians. Here's a case of zirconia. You can see the issue with some of the zirconia in the past. It has a real opacious look to it. And with glass ceramics, there's also an issue where we have, if there's some darkness coming through due to a pose, due to maybe ferric sulfate contamination and grain underneath, or tetracycline staining, whatever the reason is, it comes right through the glass ceramics usually. Okay, so here's 3 restorations done. Okay, these molars were restored. See which one you like the best. I'll give you a moment just to look at them, and you can see for a moment. Okay, looks like it was shade A3 is what we're showing over here, shade A3. So if we take a look, this is Katana multi-layered, and then what they did was CZR ceramic, high lucite content ceramic, layered on top of it. That probably gives you the closest match. The multi-layer A dark shade, and they just polished it, was also pretty close. A little bit more opacity is what I see here with my eyes, okay? Then the multi-layer A light, and just some staining, you can see it a little bit higher in value. But you can see this is much different than the previous zirconias that you've had to deal with, and so you have a lot more aesthetics. So with these higher level of aesthetics and the bonding we showed you, you have a great clinical option now. Much more clinical options for strength in your armamentarium. There's a buccal view of it after being restored, and here is multi-layer A dark, and that's just polished. It's nice just to polish the occlusal surfaces. You can polish the buccal where you're going to see it and feel it, but subgingival and on the occlusal you may want to just polish without glaze, okay? Because if you're going up against natural teeth, the glaze can wear natural opposing dentition more, and if you do the zirconia without and just polish it, you should find that much less abrasive to adjacent. So here's our super and ultra translucent. Once again, you have the gradation, the colors going through the puck. There's an example of some restorations on the right. Okay, and this is the puck layering, the percentages that they've done that try to mimic the natural tooth structure. 35% enamel translucent layer, Gradation layer 1 is 15% then darker, then layer 2 is 15% darker, and then you have your body chroma 35%. Okay? And that's kind of how they do the gradation. They have a special technology of layering as well for this product. Okay? Here's a couple of UT anterior crowns. You can see the translucency does come through quite a bit. Okay? We took these to the cosmetic dental meeting in San Francisco a couple years ago, and most of the cosmetic clinicians that came by, we asked them what they thought it was, and they said, well, composite. It looks like a composite crown to them. So they could tell it wasn't ceramic, but they could tell it was so aesthetic, they thought it was actually composite. So the sintering is, we do have a technician that does a lot of lecturing, and I've learned from him that depending on the type of sintering oven and the temperature that's needed, that can affect the shades. 2 hours at 1550 is what's needed for the katana with these pucks, and it's a 7-hour whole entire sintering time. So there's many things on cleaning the ovens and getting that temperature at the right level to get the proper shades and colors out. Translucency is very high. Our internal testing says the ultra translucence is very similar to the Emax Press LT. Okay, and then the ST super translucence a little bit less. Okay, so just one last thing, and I'll let you go, is that there's a 10-year clinical track study done by CRA and Rella Christensen and her colleagues there, where they take the zirconia substructures and what is ever recommended from that zirconia substructure by the manufacturer, and they use the layering ceramic on it. And this is a 10-year study done, and I believe it was published, initial report was August 2012, then they came out with a 10-year report, and the CZR press from Noritake on top of the zirconia substructures had 0 crumbling. Just like the top PFM down here, 0% crumbling. 19% cracking with the top PFMs, 24% with the CZR press. So you can do CZR press onto, or CZR layered onto a zirconia substructure if you have a clinical case that needs that. Okay? And this is the study. I'll just kind of breeze through it, but the survival rate was 85% with the CZR, and then Ceramco 3 was 85%. So you can see it's very high compared to even some PFMs. Okay? So you can see here some of them in the clinical study did okay, but the CZR press to zirconia substructures did exceptionally well. So you do have those options as well. You could even take some of the zirconia that I mentioned to you that is translucent, and your technician can layer on top of that. I've had that done where we were replacing number 8 and 9. Some Emax crowns had discoloring underneath them from, it looked like ferric sulfate staining, and they were graying. And so we replaced them with the ultra translucent with CZR layered on top of it. And they came out beautiful, and even reshaped the teeth. So it was done very well. The patient was very happy. This CZR is a very unique material. It's a synthetic ceramic, consistent color, high lucite content, but the coefficient of thermal expansion mimics that of zirconia, so it's why it's so successful. So definitely when it has an impact, the likelihood to fracture is much less, and so it's a very unique material that you might want to consider. Okay, so it was very successful and very low cracking and no crumbling. We do have a 1-year study that we started with Rella Christensen, and at the 1-year mark, the Katana ST with the Panavia SA Cement Plus, just by word of mouth, this is not anything official, they haven't had failures. Okay, so it does seem to be a good system, and it's with our moderate strength Panavia SA Cement Plus. Okay, all right. So let me skip through here. These is kind of redundant slides here. We reviewed that before. I want to thank you for your attention. And please address any questions to our technical support department. If you'd like to email me and a couple of my colleagues here in California for reprints or anything, dental.education@kuraray.com, or we have our phone numbers down here that you can utilize if you'd like to call in. Okay? Thank you for your time, and I hope this information helps you with your clinical cases and provides good patient outcomes. Thank you.